Just imagine an entire nation's army hunting one man, yet he keeps returning from the edge of death again and again. A similar tale unfolds in today's story. At the beginning, we learn that 12 elite soldiers were chosen and sent to German-occupied Norway. Their mission was to secretly enter enemy territory and locate key military positions. After weeks of harsh training, these 12 men were finalized for the operation. They received specialized preparation and were sent by ship toward their destination. From a distance, German forces detected the ship and destroyed it. 11 soldiers were captured, but one man managed to escape. As he fled in terror, the soldiers spotted him and opened fire. A bullet hit him in the leg while he was running. The Germans tracked him by following the blood he left behind, yet he somehow slipped out of their sight. After hours of non-stop running, he reached a pond late at night. The freezing cold was intensifying, and he knew that without shelter, death was certain. Fearing both the soldiers and the deadly cold, he entered the icy water and began to swim. Soon after, the soldiers arrived with guns and torches, searching the entire area. When they found nothing, the general assumed the fugitive had drowned and ordered a retreat. Later, a high-ranking Nazi officer named Katz arrived to interrogate the captured soldiers. Noticing that only 11 prisoners were present, he demanded to know what happened to the 12th. The general claimed the man had drowned in the icy pond. Katz refused to believe this without seeing a body. He deployed his troops across the region to search for the missing soldier. Meanwhile, John emerged from the pond in terrible condition. Large parts of his body and face were frozen solid. Despite this, he kept moving forward. By sheer luck, he encountered 2 villagers. They were kind-hearted people. They took John into their home, gave him food and warm clothes, and treated his wounds. Back at the camp, the general questioned the 11 prisoners about their mission. No one revealed any information. Enraged, he punished them brutally and even executed some to instill fear. Still determined to find the escaped man, the general tested whether crossing the icy pond was possible. He entered the water himself and stood there for 20 minutes. This convinced him that survival was indeed possible. Once John regained some strength, he decided to rescue his captured comrades. A helpful man assisted him in crossing the frozen terrain. John was then guided to the home of a wise woman. They soon formed a bond of trust. She treated his injuries and gave him the address of someone who could help further. After facing many dangers, John finally escaped and continued his fight for survival. He reached a land where nothing could be seen except endless snow, yet he kept moving to save his friends. By evening, he encountered a young couple carrying their belongings. John shared his story with them, and they offered him shelter and warm food. One day, John received devastating news from captivity. A friend of the woman was a nurse at the camp where his comrades were held. The suffering of those prisoners was unbearable. Some lost their sanity and others died. Hearing about his friends broke him completely. With a heavy heart, he realized there was nothing he could do to rescue them. He then decided to travel to Sweden with vital intelligence about German military bases. His plan was to give this information to the British so they could push German forces out of his homeland. Unable to extract any information from the 11 prisoners, the general executed them all. Later, an officer reported that every house in the region had been searched, but the escaped man was nowhere to be found. He suggested writing in the report that 12 enemies had been eliminated, as such news could not be presented to Hitler. Still, he did not truly believe the man was dead. John later reached a fisherman's house. The fisherman carried him by boat and dropped him near the road. During the journey, the fisherman showed him a newspaper. It described Hitler's most feared general, a man known for never allowing a single fugitive to escape. The article claimed his next target was John. When the boat reached the shore, the fisherman gave him food and a t-shirt. John put it on and continued his journey. Crossing dense forests and towering mountains, he arrived at a small village. Unfortunately, German soldiers were already present there. One of them noticed John as he passed by. John slipped and fell in front of them. The soldier stepped closer and stared into his eyes, as if his capture was inevitable. Instead, he mocked John's fall and let him go. Moments later, suspicion struck the officer's mind. He wondered if this could be the same man they had been chasing all along. Without wasting time, he summoned another military unit. Soon, a patrol plane spotted John. Gunfire rained down from the sky, but not a single bullet struck him. Suddenly, a fierce snowstorm swept through the area. John was buried beneath the snow. When the storm reduced visibility, the plane withdrew. After several hours, John pulled himself out from beneath the snow. His condition was horrific. The ice had frozen his bones. His nails had shattered and fallen off. Even his eyes were partially frozen. Despite being on the edge of death, he forced himself to stand. His body was broken, but he was still alive. His will to survive was stronger than his pain. Slowly, he crawled forward through the snow. Meanwhile, Katz received reports of the storm. He remained convinced that John was still alive. He sent more soldiers to the area. Although the region had been evacuated, John's belongings were still left behind. The soldiers discovered his clothes, a map, and his sneakers. When Katz learned this, he ordered an an intense search of the entire area. He announced that anyone who helped John would be executed. A brother and sister named Prosser and Gooden secretly helped him. They treated his wounds and warned him to stay hidden. After a week, John's condition improved slightly, and he decided to move toward his home. However, he was still unable to walk. With help from others, the brother and sister placed him on a cot. They left him inside a nearby hut. John had to survive alone there for a few days until the situation calmed down and someone could return for him. The first few days passed without trouble. Soon after, his mental state began to worsen. He repeatedly dreamed that German soldiers had found him and were preparing to attack. One day, he noticed swelling in several of his fingers. He realized that if it was not treated immediately, the infection would spread through his body. John then made a painful but necessary decision. Using a knife, he cut into his fingers. The pain was unbearable, but this act ultimately saved his life. After 9 days, Sapna arrived with her companions to retrieve John. They tied him with ropes and dragged him upward. They then hid him behind a large rock. Before leaving, Marius assured Jan that someone would soon come to take him to the border and help him reach Sweden. However, hours passed and no one arrived. As night fell, fear set in. The temperature dropped to -20 degrees. Shivering violently, Jan realized he might not survive the night. Later, Marius and Gooden discussed whether John had safely reached the border. At that moment, a man approached them. He was the same person who had planned to collect Jan from behind the rock and guide him to the border. When Marius asked what had happened, the man said he searched the entire cliff but could not find Jan. Marius suddenly understood the mistake. They had left Jan on the wrong side of the cliff. He immediately rushed back with his friend. They dug through the snow and pulled Jan out. His body was completely still at first. Moments later, he began to move. Despite being without food or water for days, Jan had somehow survived beneath the snow. Soon after, several men arrived and carried Jan with them. They continued traveling for hours. Jan's strength slowly faded. Eventually, they were forced to stop and take shelter inside a cave. Jan feared that German soldiers might reach them. However, the leader of the group assured him that there was nothing to worry about and that he was completely safe. They immediately began treating Jan. To stop the infection from spreading, they amputated the damaged part of his arm. For 6 days, they cared for him. Gradually, his condition began to improve. Once his strength returned slightly, they decided to move forward again. This time, they formed a bold plan. A German base was located very close to the border. To avoid detection, they decided to move Jan across the border using a massive herd of reindeer. In a hurry, they tied Jan securely and placed him with the group led by 12 handlers. When German soldiers saw the enormous herd, they became alert. They scanned the area carefully through binoculars. Despite their efforts, they could not spot Jan. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. Suddenly, the rope holding Jan snapped and he fell hard to the ground. The soldiers noticed him and immediately opened fire. Gathering his remaining strength, Jan crawled behind a large rock for cover. At that moment, he felt death was near. Just then, the reindeer pulling him came back toward him. Seeing this, Jan's will to live surged once again. He dropped his weapon and tied the rope back with his bare hands. Then he fired a shot into the air. The loud noise frightened the reindeer. The animal bolted forward at full speed, dodging bullets right before the soldiers' eyes. In this incredible way, the reindeer carried Jan across the border into Sweden. It felt nothing short of a miracle. Overwhelmed with joy, Jan began celebrating right there. The German soldiers could do nothing, as the land beyond the border was no longer under their control. They immediately reported the incident to Katz. For the first time in his life, he could not believe he had lost. Exactly 3 months later, Jan returned to Scotland. The wounds on his body had healed. However, the pain his mother had endured was still deep. One day, Jan staggered into his general's office and submitted his report. Using the intelligence he provided, the entire country was eventually liberated. For successfully delivering this information after escaping through rivers and borders, he was honored as a hero. If you enjoyed the video, like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.